A lot of people have difficulty with this question number 2, and I kind of get why. I guess it has to do with the way that the question is phrased. It's an ideas question. We're given a question, so we know we need to think about the big picture, but they want a quotation by this guy that supports the topic of the passage. So we're only in the second question. We haven't really read much of this passage yet, so it seems like we need to know more to be able to answer this. And look, honestly, it can't hurt you to, keep reading, go ahead, and then come back to this question once you've read the passage. But that's not usually how these questions are structured. So almost always we can answer these accomplish the goal questions by just sticking to the area that they tell us. And so maybe that's a sentence around it, maybe that's a paragraph around where they're telling us to look, but it's very rarely the entire passage. So the other thing that makes this kind of weird is the choices are just kind of bizarre. So my advice is just kind of trust the process here and know that it's supposed to be fairly obvious why the right answer is right. It might not feel that way in the moment, but we shouldn't have to really guess. We should be able to point to specific words in these lines, in this passage, and say, this is the reason that the right answer is right. Here's my proof. And we can kind of do that just by looking at the rest of this sentence, the part that's not underlined. It says one solution he proposed was to make children's books more interesting. And even though interesting is underlined, notice it's in all the choices. So it doesn't really change. It's part of the structure here that doesn't change. So we want something that's going to make children's books interesting. So let's look at the sentence that's already there. Since an individual sense of wholeness follows and cannot precede a sense of accomplishment. What? What the heck does that even mean? That's just like nonsense. So I have no idea what that has to do with children's books or something being interesting. Trust that feeling. If it's random and it feels weird, that's not a good sign. These passages are supposed to be kind of easy to read. We don't want to insert weird things that aren't easy to read. Same thing is kind of true of letter B here. Since learning starts with failure, the first failure is the beginning of education. I have no idea what that means. That's just like total nonsense here. It has nothing to do with children's books. It has nothing to do with something being interesting. So maybe you keep it because you're confused by it, but there's no connection. There's nothing jumping up that says, hey, this matches what the ideas we're trying to convey. Choice C is going to be the worst one, I think, because it's like provably wrong and random. Journalism allows its readers to witness history. Fiction gives its readers an opportunity to live. Well, why are we talking about journalism? We've been talking about children's books. This just seems kind of unrelated to the rest of the sentence. But now look at D. Drawings like those of the wonderfully imaginative geniuses among children's illustrators. Okay. So we're talking about children, which we were talking about in the sentence itself, and imaginative is a really nice matching word for interesting. So what they're saying matters to what they've already said, right? They're giving us a quote that has to do with making children's books interesting by giving them drawings. And if we read the rest of the passage, we're going to get that. And if we go back to the title of the passage, because sometimes when they ask about the whole passage on a writing section, the title can kind of summarize what it's about. It doesn't say anything about drawing, but it's talking about the Cat in the Hat, which most of us will know, and it's talking about children's education, and their kids are disengaged from learning. So this is very much about children's books. So the only choice that kind of has to do with children's books is D. Trust that feeling. This is maybe what I would call a dumb summary here. Except instead of going into the choices with a clear idea of what they needed to be about, I kind of worked a little bit more backwards here. I looked at the choices and I was like, okay, is there anything that kind of seems related to this vague stuff that I'm getting around the sentence? And that's okay. Sometimes we just need to trust the process. But I think if we think of it this way, as there's a few matching ideas, it's much more clear why A and B are wrong. They sound weird, they sound really smart, but they're not matching with anything in that sentence. They don't follow that idea that was started before the word interesting, before the comma. So it's a tough question, I get it, and it throws a lot of people off right away. But try to boil this stuff down, and I think you'll be able to find the connector words that make some of these choices go away very easily and make the right answer stick out much more. Those things are always there for writing. There's always a reason why that right answer is right.